Hello, listeners, and welcome to the first program in our series, Let's Learn Fashion and Fabrics, which is introduced for grade 8 learners and everybody who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean-Andre Nitschke, and today we'll learn about hand stitches. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make note of the important parts. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end of the program, so don't forget to take part. At the end of this program, you should be able to identify hand stitches, running, blanket, herringbone, and overcasting, as well as describe the use of running, blanket, herringbone, and overcasting stitches.
Miss Elena, what are the different stitches used by hands?
Good question, Orna. There are different hand stitches. For example, a running stitch.
What do you mean by running stitches, Miss Elena?
Running stitch is a simple stitch similar to even tacking, but the stitches are much shorter. It's also used for gathering materials.
Miss Elena, my mom bought a blanket for my grandfather, and at the edges of the blanket I saw loop stitches used.
You're very correct. A blanket stitch or loop stitch is used for neatening the edges of material, which does not fray easily and is normally worked on single materials.
Can I use herringbone to fasten down hems with raw edges?
Oh yes, herringbone hemming is used to fasten down hems with raw edges, making a stitch into the hem from right to left, taking up a few threads of the material.
Oh, what is the difference between overcasting and oversewing?
Overcasting or oversewing is the same, and it's used for neatening seam edges to prevent fraying.
Miss Elena, can you describe the use of running, blanket, and herringbone and overcasting?
Okay, Ona. Let me start with overcasting. This stitch is used for neatening the frayed edges of either single or double fabric. But the blanket stitch is used in dressmaking to neaten the frayed edges. For example, at the armhole, waistline, or under bust style line. Lastly, a herringbone is used to fasten down hems with raw edges. This finished stitch looks like a double line of crosses.
Miss, please allow me to conclude today. I have learned types of hand stitches such as running, blanket, herringbone, and overcasting stitches, and how to describe the use of all the hand stitches.
Very good, Orna. And that brought us to the end of our program. But before we close off, here are your questions for the day. List 4 types of hand stitches. Describe the types of hand stitches and indicate their use. This program was written by Lempi W. Angula. Until next time, take care and stay safe.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 5th program in our series, Let's Learn Fashion and Fabrics, which is produced for grade 8 learners and everybody who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean Renetschke, and today we will learn about man-made fibers. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you may make notes of the important points. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end of the program, so please don't forget to take part. At the end of this program, you should be able to list 3 examples of each fabric manufactured from fibers, define the following terms regarding the fibers listed above: strength, absorbency, comfort, durability, resilience, color fastness, and flammability. List the property of viscose or rayon, polyester, nylon, and acrylic.
Natural fibers are fibers made from living organisms, which are animals or plants.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Joe and Semi, keep quiet and sit down. Why do you always make a noise?
Very sorry, Miss Angula. We were discussing about natural fibers, and Semi told me that natural fibers are from animals and plants.
Joe, you're right. Natural fibers are fibers made from substances that you get from plants and animals, such as wool from sheep or cotton from cotton plants, and silk fibers are extracted from caterpillar cocoons.
So, wool is made from sheep, and cotton grows in a ball from cotton flowers, and silk from caterpillar cocoons.
Exactly, Joe. That's why you were right to say natural fibers are from animals and plants.
Why is it very important to know the properties of different fibers, Miss?
Okay, Joe. We need to know this information because it will help you to make the best selection for your projects. You'll also know what alternative you can use if the best selection is not available. Any other questions? If there are no questions, let us look at fibers and defining strength, absorbency, color fastness, resilience, durability, and flammability.
Miss Lempi, what does strength mean?
Okay, so strength refers to how strong fibers are. It gives us an idea of how much load we can apply to a fabric. If the fabric's strength is weak, then it will break or tear easily.
Textile materials absorb and retain water.
How do you know that, Semi? Stop talking and you are speaking louder.
Joe and Semi again. Let's tell the class what you're talking about. Joe, explain the term absorbency. What does it mean?
Sorry. Absorbency is referred to the ability of a textile material to absorb and retain water. For example, sport outfits are often made of absorbent materials to absorb extra moisture from the sweat while you exercise.
That's correct. You read your book very well, and the explanation is correct. You should also understand that certain fabrics will soak up moisture, while others will wick away moisture.
But Miss, can you explain other properties of fibers?
Okay, Joe. I'll start with color fastness. Color fastness refers to a dyed fabric's ability to resist fading or running when washed, exposed to sunlight, or other environmental conditions. This is often described by how well a fabric takes to color dye.
Does that mean when I choose a fabric for a project, I should consider how often it will be worn and what environmental conditions the fabric will be exposed to, as well as how to care for it properly?
That's correct, Joe, and thank you for your explanation. The next is resilience. This is the fabric's ability to keep its original shape or position after being stretched or used. You should also know some fabrics are meant to be stretched and others are not.
Miss Angula, that means example, children's clothes needs to be resilient as they are always active and put a lot of strain on the clothes?
Yes, Joe. You also need to take proper care of the fabrics because it is very important, and also keep in mind when choosing the fabric.
Durability refers to how well the fabric will last after repeated use or a lot of strain.
Yes, Joe, you seem to know this stuff well. Proper care is very important here, but some fibers or fabrics will last longer than others. For example, a wedding dress may not be worn often, but might be kept for years to come, while a t-shirt will likely be worn weekly.
Why do most people don't need non-flammable clothes for everyday wear, Miss Angula?
That's a good question. Let me first define flammability. Flammability refers to how quickly the fibers will catch fire. So coming to your question, what do you think the reason should be that most people want to use non-flammable clothes, Joe?
Because it's only rescue workers, such as firefighters, certainly need non-flammable uniforms and others don't need to wear it often.
Good, Joe. But remember, children also need to wear non-flammable fabrics because they play everywhere, even near the fire.
Miss Angula, what are the properties of viscose or rayon?
Before I answer you, Joe, we're going to discuss the properties of the following: viscose, polyester, nylon, and acrylic. Viscose is very smooth, it doesn't trap body heat, it's relatively light, drapes well, it's breathable and highly absorbent. Polyester is strong, easily washed, quick drying, and keeps its color. That means the dyes do not run when a garment is washed and it does not fade easily. Nylon holds its shape and does not crease. It catches fire easily and burns very quickly. And acrylic is soft, light, and warm, strong, and can be knitted with quick drying materials.
Miss Angula, can I please conclude what we learned today? Different fabrics and how to define them, the property of viscose, polyester, nylon, and acrylic.
Thank you, Joe, for your conclusion. And that brings us to the end of our program. But before we close off, here are the questions for the day. Which fiber catches fire easily? Define natural fibers and man-made fibers. Define the following terms regarding fibers: strength, color fastness, durability, and flammability. This program was written by Mrs. Angula Lempi. Until next time, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the fourth program in our series, Let's Learn Fashion and Fabrics, which is produced for grade 8 learners and everybody who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jandre Nitschke, and today we will learn about the importance of suitable selection of clothes for a teenager. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end of the program, so don't forget to take part. At the end of this program, you should be able to define the following fashion terms: fashion, design, fashion trend, fashion fad, and identify the style lines: horizontal, vertical, curved, diagonal, or slanted.
Joe, why does a jean not fade easily when it comes to fashion?
For decades, a jean has been popular and has strong materials, and still people love jeans until now.
Cuckoo and Joe, you're discussing an interesting topic, and hopefully you will share as the lesson begins. So go back to your seats.
Thanks, Miss Angula. Indeed, we will share the information.
In this topic, we are going to look at specific fashion terms such as fashion, design, fashion trend, and fashion fad. Also, we will learn how to identify the different style lines such as horizontal, vertical, curved, and slanted or diagonal. Cuckoo, what is fashion, or how do you understand the term fashion?
I think fashion is created when a silhouette is established from a certain mixture of style, possibly in specific colors.
Yes, Cuckoo. But the easiest definition is that the type of clothing and style that a large group of people prefer at any given time is called fashion.
Miss Angula, design is the outline of a pattern used to make an item.
Very good, Cuckoo. Or can we say design is also referred to as the pattern or motifs used to decorate an item, the sketch or plan that forms or structures an item.
Miss, does that mean fashion trend is the latest look?
Correct. Fashion trend is the latest look from the most fashionable runways.
Well, it seems like fashion fad is a temporary or short-lived trend, appearing and disappearing equally fast.
Yes, Cuckoo. Fashion fad is exactly that. It's a temporary passing fashion which is around for a short period of time.
Ms. Angula, how do you find illusion lines used in clothes we wear or specifically on the body?
That's a good question, Cuckoo. Today we're going to learn about the elements that make up a design. Coming back to your question, I will start by saying lines are necessary to make the garment and maintain the structure. For example, seam lines.
Correct. When it comes to horizontal line, it makes a person look shorter and broader.
That's good, Cuckoo. Lines can also make you look taller or shorter.
Vertical line can create the illusion of a taller, slimmer body.
Yes, Cuckoo, you seem to understand this well. Vertical lines lead up the eye and down, making the body appear taller and slimmer.
But Miss Angula, they said curved lines create more romantic and feminine look. Is that true?
Yes, that's true, Cuckoo. Curved lines create a softer, more romantic feminine illusion. They hold the eye longer than straight lines and lead the eye around the garment to reinforce the body's natural curves.
Diagonal lines can be very dramatic and active. How, Mrs. Angula?
Okay, so slanted and diagonal lines draw your attention to where the lines lead. To see how low they can be dramatic, use them where you want to place emphasis on the body. They can create an active and dramatic illusion.
Ms. Angula, please allow me to conclude what we have learned today.
Sure.
We have learned no terminology used in fashion such as fashion, design, and fashion fad and fashion trend. And I also learned to identify different line or style lines such as horizontal, vertical, curved, and slanted or diagonal.
Thank you very much, Cuckoo, for your conclusion. And that brings us to the end of our program. But before we close off, here are your questions for the day. Define the term fashion. What is the difference between a fashion trend and a fashion fad? What are decorative style lines used for? Give 3 examples. This program was written by Mrs. Angula Lempi, Until next time, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello listeners, and welcome to the first program in our series. Let's learn about fashion and fabrics, which are produced for grade 8 learners and anyone else who's interested in the subject. My name is Jerry Joe Omole, and today we'll learn about the teenager as a clothing consumer part 2. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of important points. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end of the program, so don't forget to take part. At the end of this program, you should be able to list the responsibility of a consumer, describe the responsibility of a consumer regarding shoplifting, damages, prompt payment, and explain how to lay a complaint.
I heard about teenager clothing consumer. Do you know anything about it?
I only know a consumer is a person who buys goods or services for personal use, but a teenager consumer, that's something new. Let's ask Mr. Angula. He may explain more to us.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir.
Lenny and Maggie, you are talking too much. May you please keep quiet, or if you have any questions, you can ask before we start with today's lesson.
I am very sorry, sir. We are talking about consumer or a teenager as a consumer, and we do not understand what it means. Can you please give us a hint?
Okay, Lenny. First of all, you need to understand that a consumer is anyone who uses a good or service. In this topic, we'll look at a teenager as a consumer of clothes, of course. You will find out or examine how advertisements influence you and what information you need to make a proper decision.
Wow, that's an interesting topic. So say, how should we care for our clothes once we bought them?
Good question, Maggie. As a consumer, you should be aware of what you are spending your money on so that you spend your money wisely. Once you bought an item of clothing, you should learn how to take care of it.
I just learned that many clothes we wear have curl labels on them. And does that mean we should follow them?
Absolutely, Maggie. You should learn how to take care of it, and as a consumer, you have certain responsibilities that you have to follow. Well, that's a very good question, Maggie. The consumer has certain responsibilities towards the seller of goods and services. These are to pay promptly and not shoplift, to guard against damaging of any goods in the shop, and complain through the right channels.
My mom buys clothes on credit. Is that what we call prompt payment?
Oh yes, as long as she honors her agreement between her and the seller. When you buy on credit, you are making the seller to wait for his money. He raises his prices to compensate for this, and it's called prompt payment.
But Mr. Agada, many of my friends steal sweets in shops, and in many cases they are not caught.
Well, Maggie, do you know what this means? It's called shoplifting. A very bad practice. Any goods taken out of a shop or even passed through the cashier at the till without permission of the seller is considered to be stolen goods. So shoplifting is a criminal offense and the police will be called.
Mr. Agada, if I buy a cool drink and it falls while I'm in a shop, who will pay for that cool drink?
Another good question from you, Maggie. Goods damaged by a potential buyer in a shop usually have to be paid by the buyer. This is called guarding against damage of goods. So be careful when taking children in the shop. See that they do not touch any goods and do not play with any things.
Well, does that mean we should handle breakable items with care and an assistant should be called?
We should.
But say the consumer has the right to choose any products he or she wants, or why certain shop asks you to pick things you don't need.
It is very wrong. A consumer should have a variety of products to choose from, and mostly what you want, and no one has the right to choose for you.
But Mr. Angada, if I'm not happy with my products, do I have the right to complain?
Yes, you do have the right to complain. The consumer has the right to the head, meaning a consumer has the right to complain about a product or a service. The complaint should be heard and be dealt with in an appropriate manner. If complaints are necessary, they should be made through the right channels for the best results. Make sure you have facts before complaining. Complaining to the right person, for example, the manager or store owner, followed, if necessary, by the producer of the goods. Take note of the name of the person to whom you made the complaints. Keep the invoice, warranty, or receipt that might be required. Be polite and fair and state the facts briefly and clearly. It is important complaints should be made in writing. Quotes, orders, and invoice numbers. Original invoices or receipts should never be posted. If you are unable to obtain satisfaction, you should consult your local chamber of commerce. Consumer complaint columns of certain newspaper provides a service for setting complaints. Lastly, the Namibian or South African Coordinating Consumer Council is not a complaint bureau, but sometimes it investigates complaints about trading practices.
All right, sir, I understand. May I please conclude the lesson of today?
Yes, go ahead, Maggie.
I have learned the responsibility of the consumer and to describe the responsibility of the consumer with regard to shoplifting, damages, and prompt payments. Lastly, how to lay a complaint.
Thank you, Maggie, for your conclusion. And that brings us to the end of our program. But before we close off, here are your questions for the day. Question 1. List 5 responsibilities of a consumer. Question 2. How do you lay a complaint? And question 3. Describe ways of consumer responsibility with regarding to shoplifting, damaging, and prompt payments. This program was written by Ms. Lempi W. Angula. Until next time, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to our second program in our series, Let's Learn Fashion and Fabrics, which is produced for grade 8 learners and everybody who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean-Andre Nitschke, and we will learn about the teenager as a clothing consumer, part 1. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end of the program, so don't forget to take part. At the end of this program, you should be able to define consumer, identify 4 different types of advertisement for clothing: humorous, agony, repetition, testimonial. Identify and list information found on clothing labels, such as the size, trade name, fiber content, finished process, quality, mark, wool, cotton, silk, and interpret the information on a clothing label.
Sim, what type of advertisement did you learn?
I know humorous advertisement, which makes me feel good and laugh all the times when I'm watching it in a movie.
Lee and Sam, what are you talking about? Can you please share with the class?
We are very sorry, ma'am. We were only talking about one type of advertisement, humorous.
Good. Thank you for sharing, Lee. But we'll talk about advertisement later. For now, we can discuss something else. I want you to define a consumer.
A consumer is someone who wishes to buy a good or service for personal use.
Very good, Lee. So when you go to the shop and buy clothes or food or school supplies, you are a consumer.
Miss Limpy, how do suppliers and manufacturers persuade you to buy their products instead of their competitors' products through advertisements?
Okay, Lee, there are 4 different types of advertisements. Let's look at the 4 types. They are humorous, agony, repetition, and testimonial.
Well, Ms. Limpy, I learned humorous are meant to make you laugh.
Yes, that's true. Humorous advertisements are meant to make you laugh. By laughing while looking at the advertisement, you will feel good and associate the brand with feeling good and laughter.
Ms. Limpy, agony is, for example, if you want to go mountain climbing during a snowstorm, you will need a warm and durable clothing or otherwise you will freeze.
That's a very good example, Lee. Agony advertisements are meant to show you a bad situation that requires you to buy the products to relieve the agony. It shows you that if you are in a situation like this, then you will have to buy these products in order to survive or make life better.
Miss, the dog, the well-known artist, has his own clothing line. Does he use repetition to remind his consumers again and again?
Lee, I'm not so sure about that. Repetition is the easiest way to keep a brand or a product in the forefront of a consumer's mind. Like the dog wants you to buy Mshasho brand only, and that's why you're reminded of it again and again, and will likely buy it simply because it's on your mind when you walk into a store.
How do you promote a brand like Gucci or Adidas?
Okay, Lee, with Gucci or Adidas, they select a celebrity like Rihanna or sports stars to promote their brand or products.
Oh, now I understand. Like in soccer, they use Pogba with an Adidas brand.
Yes, Lee, we call it testimonial advertisement. This type of advertisement uses a customer's word to promote their brand. Consumers will think that if the products are good enough for a celebrity, it must be good enough for them.
Miss Limpy,
Yes, Lee.
why do we need to read information or read the clothing label on our garments carefully?
Lee, you need to read your labels because you need to get the following information, such as the size, trade name, style number, fiber content, finishing process, quality mark, and care symbols.
For example, tell us the size I wear.
Oh yes, Lee. Size could simply show small, medium, or large up to double extra large, or it can be more specific and show 32 or 8 up to 42 or 16. It depends on the manufacturer and the country they are selling in.
Miss, is the trade name like Pep Store?
Yes, Lee. This is usually a unique name for the garment type.
What about fiber content?
Fiber content, Lee, tells you the percentage of each type of fiber presented in the fabric used to make the garment.
Finish process refer to the final process that the garment underwent to apply a certain characteristic such as waterproofing or stain resistance.
That's a good explanation, Lee. You should take note of the finishing process as it might influence the care instructions.
Quality mark like wool, cotton, silk tell us about the fiber content and what else?
The quality mark also tells you the quality of the wool, cotton, or silk in the garment, and then it would likely be more expensive and require careful cleaning.
Well, ma'am, so how do you interpret the information on the clothing label?
On the clothing label, you find washing, bleaching, ironing, dry cleaning, and drying.
Okay, ma'am, can you allow me to conclude what I've learned today?
Surely.
We explained what is a consumer and we stated the 4 types of different advertisement for clothing. For example, there's agony, humorous, repetition, and testimonial. We also mentioned about the information found on clothing such as the trade name, fiber content, finishing process, quality mark, for example, wool, cotton, and silk. Lastly, we interpreted the information on the clothing label.
Wow! Thank you for the excellent conclusion, Lee. And that brings us to the end of our program. But before we close off, here are your questions for the day. List 4 types of information found on the clothing label. Define a consumer and identify 4 different types of advertisement for clothing. This program was written by Lempi Angula. Until next time, take care and stay safe.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.